Before joining the team at Colorado Biz, Mike served as both the city editor and the business editor at the Boulder Daily Camera. And with that, take it away, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Anybody see the movie Marley and Me? I was watching it over the weekend, and there's a scene where the main character is wondering whether he should become a newspaper columnist and I don't know if I want to be a columnist. I mean, you know, it's like ancient history because now anybody would kill for a job like that in any newspaper, so it's kind of sad to see that happen. I'm Mike Cody. I'm the editor of Colorado Biz magazine. We've been around for 36 years. I've been the editor for 2 years. Happy to be still in the media game. We Twitter Colorado Biz. We have a Facebook page. We do video. We do podcasts. And we still put out a monthly print publication. We do email newsletters 4 times a week. We're using every platform available, and that's what I want to be talking to you folks tonight about, how everybody can take advantage of that. Let me introduce the other 2 members of our panel. Brent Green is an author, speaker, trainer, consultant focused on leading edge baby boomers. I was born in '63, so that was right at the tail end of the baby boom. 1946, 1955 are the leading edge baby boomers that Brent focuses on. This wealthy and high flying cohort is rapidly changing the way businesses address adults 50 and older. We treated that in a recent issue of the magazine on the boom in sports business with all those buckling knees from people running marathons. Next on our panel is Herb Rubenstein. He's the president of Sustainable Business Group. Previously, he was a candidate for Congress in Colorado, and he worked for 28 years in Washington, D.C. as a business consultant, lawyer, government policy specialist, and author. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Let's talk about Twitter since I brought it up. Odell Brewing is using Twitter to ask its customers to choose its next beer. Quest and many other companies are using it for customer service. A lot of our journals talk was about customer service and how you keep those people coming back. Tell me how businesses can use Twitter to enhance that customer experience. Herb, you want to start?
Sure. You know, I think one of the things you have to do, I tell people, if we're trying to take somebody from Toledo to Cleveland, it's usually best to start in Toledo and go grab them. So you have to find out. Some customers will be using Twitter, some won't. If they do, join in. Because the conversation now is really short, it's fast, it's fleeting. And so that's what you need. And I would say one of the ways to do that is you're holding an event like this, you can even have a video where the people who are tweeting, they are right there, you can see, right there. And so you get this feedback and people will do it. So you bring video in with audio. We're now starting to talk to our clients about you have to, if you want to be a client of ours, you have to use Skype or Google Chat, Google Talk or something. And so we want to try to bring video and audio together. That's what we think broadband can deliver.
A lot of people assume that the older generation, let's say over 50, might be a little bit challenged by technology. Fact, last 120 days, the fastest group growing on Facebook is baby boomer women. And really the reality is that the networks are forming online, they're continuing to form. There are numerous social networking tools. I advise clients use all of them. Facebook, MySpace, Twitter. How many people twittered that they're going to be here tonight? Okay, so did I. Anyway, the point is that as business is going to be created, we're in a transformational time. We're on the QE2 right now. It's a very placid ocean, and the QE2 is turning. Do we notice it? Probably not. We are going through the greatest demographic change in the history of the Western world, which is the aging of society. The development of business creation is going to go into high gear around that fact. Everybody in this room has an opportunity to make an enormous amount of money by recognizing these trends and how they're shifting. And one of the ways to form a cohort is social networking. Well, I think you have, yeah, let's do it.
We'll get them in stereo.
Okay.
You know, when I start looking at this, I realize that there are 2 words that define where the consumer wants to go. One is self-paced, which means I'm going to do what and when at my pace. Second is I want total control, which means I'm going to talk when I want to talk, and that I think are two of the key defining moments of social media. So I really would challenge you by saying it's very important to Twitter, but at the same time, if you want to be in the leading edge, let's try to find out what is the next biggest territory, and why not go and own this, so by the time all of us laggards, I have to confess, I started Twittering 2 weeks back when I started working on a new book, and I was amazed to find 150 people are following me, asking me about the recipe of a fish curry I'm making for my daughter when she's coming from France. I'm totally fascinated, and I really feel learning from my mistake instead of following something which is already there. Please try to find the next biggest thing and go and join that first.
I felt a twinge of guilt when you asked who Twittered that they were coming here tonight. I would have, but I ran out of time. I've got LinkedIn, I've got Facebook, I've got email, I've got print. All these things hitting me. At what point does your message become just overwhelming to people because you're trying to hit them at so many different places? Is there a danger in just trying to reach people in so many different ways? We have a do not call list, we have a do not email me, do not send me junk mail list, so we can have a do not Twitter me list.
It's all about affinity. In fact, I had a conversation with a young man yesterday who is finishing up a degree in sportscasting. And I said, oh, do you have Twitter? Do you have Facebook? He has Facebook. He had MySpace, I think, also. But I said, why not Twitter? And the answer is because if I want to have an opportunity to be involved in somebody's business or life, if their life is their business, I'm interested in taking as many doses of them as I want to, when I want to, as I can get them. And the best example I can use is Lance Armstrong, because I'm following Lance Armstrong. This young man's going to be a sportscaster, but he doesn't know that Lance is in Aspen today and it's going well? No. That's the point of social networking. We have an opportunity to connect in the networks when and how we want, in the dosage we want. I think it's critical for all businesses to be available on multiple platforms in multiple ways.
Thanks.
When I was running for Congress, we had 4 young people blogging for us every day. This was 2005. I was actually a young man then. And when Mike talks about Colorado Biz Magazine, you know he doesn't do everything there. And and he has a team. And communication, if you're a business person, requires a team. You may be in a startup situation, there may be only one person, even when you're looking in the mirror, there's still one person. But I sort of tracked and followed what our bloggers were doing. And some very unusual things started happening. And so I went to our bloggers and I said, something weird's going on, I'm tracking the traffic, what's happening? And one of our bloggers said, okay, I admit it. I've been arguing with myself. And so I had no idea bloggers did that. I mean, I'm from the old school. When you take a position, you stick with it, and he was doing it, but it was generating a lot of traffic. So the thing is, your communication system has to be a team effort. And so you may not have time to Twitter. You may not, I mean, we have 35 consultants. We want all of them on Skype, not just for planned communication, but for calling up. And so we just had a communication, a son in Israel, a daughter in Chicago, 2 of us in Colorado. Our son and daughter were watching each other on Google Talk. They turned down the volume, and then we had a conference call. So that was just a couple of days ago. And the fascinating thing about it is communications become really inexpensive. That phone call with that video 10 years ago would probably have cost $1,000 for 30 minutes. No kidding. It didn't cost anything. So be willing to invest in others communicating with you because a platform is so cheap.
Before we get caught on Twittering or any other medium like this, let's just realize this is just a communication tool, which means if I don't have anything to say or you don't want to listen to me, why even use the medium? Which means we have to be very careful on how and what we say, and at the same time realize how powerful this medium is. If any one of you followed what happened in Mumbai on 26th of November, when all these terrorists were inside, there was no information. Some amazing businesses had this brilliant plan. Let us open every wireless network And then people started twittering. Twittering turned out to be you asking for help. I'm in this room with a green thing, and I can hear some sounds outside. This is how big the room is. It has 2 double beds. Based on this, the intelligence, they started adding all these units of information, and then they realized that these evil, bad terrorists were trying to run through this liquor room, which they wanted to have a big explosion. So the explosion was avoided because, in this case, the medium was used in a way where the person who wanted to talk had something to say, and the person on the other side wanted to listen and add both together. So I would say, before you jump into the medium, let's try to find out what do we have to say, because I feel, as always, the content is more important than what medium we use.
That said, I wanted to see what you think of this. We just started doing Twitter a couple weeks, maybe 3 weeks ago. Created a page, and we got an email from somebody who I think was just trying to get some business, but said, "I looked at your Twitter page. You don't really seem like you're ready yet. Why don't you do some more work before you started doing it?" And my response was, because by the time we do that, we'll be on to something else. I mean, there's an experimentation going on, and you're trying to see what works and what doesn't work. I had a lot of talk with our publisher, and he had some idea of how to use Twitter to do surveys and gauge information for people. And I don't know if Twitter's about that. It's about, what are you doing now?
You, I think, answered the question yourself, because when you got that unsolicited inquiry from this person, we are in a world where we can identify spam with our eyes closed. Right now I can feel it. On my cell phone, 3 spam emails came in. I'm not looking at it, okay?
Oh, spam.
Spam. So think, in a situation like this, the consumer is getting more and more smarter. I'm just a new Twitter person. I don't know what you call the person. In 2 weeks, I have figured out how to get rid of these people who are. So I really feel, as you start going through, you need to realize the consumer's life cycle as they go through the learning is very fast, and they are more smart than before. So we have to be careful about soliciting as we go in.
Anything you want to add to that?
I think everybody in the room has one thing in common. Their goal, everybody's goal, tell me if I'm wrong, is to increase market awareness of who you are and what you do. One way you do that is your digital footprint. And that's probably universally necessary in the world we're living in right now, is to increase our digital footprint. We have numerous methodologies to be able to do that. They're all tools, as Arjun said, and the message is critical. What are we selling? Who are we selling it to? How do we differentiate ourselves? And why would they buy it? And I think you covered that very well in your presentation, Arjun. But I think that is the thing we're looking at, and it's not bound by demographics anymore. It's bound by affinity. So, I think, Mike, one of the goals of your magazine will be to increase its digital footprint as it continues to improve its print footprint, so that you have maximum impact on your constituency, and they can realize things about what you offer at any time, 24 hours a day, not just when they go to the newsstand once a month or they open up their mailbox. And I think that generality applies to every business in this room.
And we found it's a whole different universe of people that we're reaching online than we are in print. Right. Perfect.
I'm going to say 3 words, and if you hear one of those words a little stronger than the other, you might just take home the worst business advice that's ever been given. So listen carefully. How many of you in this room know exactly and perfectly how to accomplish what it is you want to accomplish, what products you want to build, what services you want to provide over the next 5 years? How many of you have already figured it out? Okay? So what I'm going to tell you is 3 words. Do it badly. Now, how many of you heard the word badly as being sort of more important than do it? I could say don't do it perfectly. That's kind of the same thing. But the point is, we're now at the point where you can experiment. It's not trial and error. It's just trial and trial. Get it out. Get it done. Now, you can't send that to 1 million people on the first blush, but you can send it. How many of you have, in the last week, written an article? Okay? Now, how many of you have written an article before it went out to many people, sent that article to some people just... Any of you? Right. Because what happens when you send a draft article out to review? Other people think they're the author. And you want them to think that. But if you don't get it out, you want to get, when you write an article, you want to get to the 50th draft. That's where you want to get to it, but you've got to send it out. So I urge you, do it badly. Twitter, Colorado Biz, do it badly. You will get better, but only if you do it.
We started that with video about a year and a half ago. We started doing video interviews, and I really wouldn't want to look at some of the edits we've done early on, but we just started doing it, and what we found is not only were we providing a new content on our website, it was opening doors for us with businesses and sources that wouldn't have been open otherwise. We built relationships. Even if only 75 people on a given day looked at that video, we made a connection with that company and that business, and it came into something later. Arjun, in your bio, talks about how you were involved with Papa John's online ordering system. And it's phenomenal to see the kind of growth that brought the company. Honestly, I think when I heard about that a few years ago, online ordering in any business like a restaurant, I mean, people made jokes about it. Stand-up comics said, I want to order pizza next week. Tell me what you faced, with, what kind of preconceived notions people might have had, and what challenges there were in using that new medium.
The reason I'm giggling is, I wish today I had my binder with me. All of you, or most of you, know about Jack Trout, the world famous Al Ries and Jack Trout, which means every marketing book ever written was written by one of these two guys. When I started with my team building the online ordering, Jack Trout sent a fax to my boss, Papa John's John Schnotter, which says, "This will not work." I carry that fax with me because that to me is an inspiration. Which again tells me, if somebody tells you something cannot be done, which means that's the biggest opportunity which is in front of you. Papa John's Online was started with a very simple philosophical topic, which is the first element of a pizza ordering is a phone order. Who has the power? Not you. The ordering person calls you, and I also used to joke about was Pizza Hut, Papa John's, Domino's should change their names to Pizza Hut, hold please. Domino's, hold please. Papa John's, hold please. They don't even take your permission. So think, you and I, we are in this conversation. Before you go through anything, I show you I am totally in control. Do you have a menu in front of you? No, I have the menu. So as we started going through, what we realized was the paying person need to be put on a level field. And that was what online started. So as we start going through, there was one mistake I made when I left Papa John's Online. I had projected that Papa John's will reach $1 billion in online sales by year 2011. This year I went to Louisville, Kentucky, played golf with the CFO, who told me that they reached $1 billion in 2007. Think for a second. I used a very aggressive timeline, which tells me when we are looking at projects, new product life cycles, we are evaluating that with today's reality. YouTube has made pictures obsolete. It's all videos. So as you look at and project your business, try to be the Martian and start visualizing what life tomorrow will be, and then you'll get rewarded with these new billion-dollar businesses.
Thank you. Anything to add on that? Okay. Brent, this one's for you, and the rest of you guys can add to it. What are some of the trends businesses can tap into in that baby boomer upper end market that you're so familiar with?
Okay, let me give you an example. Let's say you decide to do an online travel product. You're going to provide travel services to baby boomers for experiences. If you chose to do that, you'd be tapping into the major themes of what this generation is going into. Number one would be travel, the idea of edutainment. As people get later into life, particularly baby boomers, since 35% of them have bachelor's degrees or higher, they're going to be looking for education and learning. Health and fitness oriented toward longevity. In other words, active vacations. Also, community. One of the things that we're seeing grow aggressively right now is multi-generational travel, particularly baby boomers and their grandchildren. Also, spirituality. So we're seeing as people get into later life, they start thinking more about spiritual things. So that opens up the trips to Machu Picchu and other places on the planet, to Israel, and to other places where people try to get to some definite basics in their lives. And also peer community. In other words, people traveling together to have the ultimate on the road trip. So if you think about it, all of these forces that the baby boom generation, like every other generation, is changing because of the aging process. A lot of their core values remain the same. One of self-empowerment, one of self-actualization, one of experimentation. But as they get older, priorities change. So it becomes absolutely essential that you can't make any assumptions, that you have to research the market as it's changing. We know, for example, right now, that if you had to bet on whether baby boomer women or baby boomer men would be more likely to spend discretionary income, I can tell you right now that it's baby boomer men. Counterintuitive. I can also tell you that baby boomer men anticipate more frequently the desire to live to be 100, much more than women.
Because the women live longer, they're not worried about it.
Right, they don't have to worry, of course. But there's a gap because the baby boomer men are less willing to take as much initiative to preserve longevity. So the point is that when you work with research, with a smart research company, and you know the underlying values of a generation, you can predict the future and what they're going to do and spend money on.
Sure.
No.
Okay, this one's for you, Herb. Part of your bios, you've done a lot of work with large nonprofits. How can they take advantage of the new marketing methods, both with social media, and how can they deal with the meltdown we're facing right now?
In 1998, I wrote a book called Breakthrough Incorporated, and I predicted two things. One, nonprofits would start to merge. They really have to. Now, that hasn't happened very much. We know two nonprofits with 2 employees each, and it took 18 months to merge. What was the name going to be? Who was going to be chairperson of the board? You know, billion-dollar companies had merged quicker than that. And so nonprofits are going to have to join forces. There's a certain level of scale that you're just going to have to get to in order to afford the help that you need to get things done. You're going to need the reach. The other thing that nonprofits are going to have to do is that they're going to have to learn about themselves. So let's take the Gates Foundation. One of our consultants is doing some work with the Gates Foundation. They give out $200, $300 million, not here and there, and I don't want to minimize that at all. But they might give $200 million for an AIDS project in South Africa. They might give $400 million for a literacy project in Kenya. But you know what? Someday in Kenya, in that $400 million literacy project, somebody's going to learn something on Tuesday. And if they could get that information to on Wednesday, to South Africa, to that other project, it will save a life. So this whole concept of knowledge management, in nonprofits, you're just going to have to stop the silos, because some companies, universities, can certainly afford that. They're set up that way. So nonprofits are going to have to learn how to be not so much efficient, but really effective. And the other thing I just want to mention real quickly, I wrote an article which I probably never should have written, but it's led to a book and I love it. And it was called Who is the Customer for K through 12 Education? Now that seems like a pretty simple, benign question. But you know, a lot of teachers say customer is an entrepreneurial word. We don't use that word in K through 12. So what I did was, very quickly, I went through, could it be teachers? Customers, they get the jobs. Probably not. Could it be parents? No, I don't think so. Jobs, the economy, too vague. The community, I don't like it. So I went through all of them, and all of a sudden I decided the customer was the student. You know what that does for your customer relationship management system? Well, first of all, schools don't really have good customer relationship management systems. Nonprofits don't have good customer relationship management systems. Somebody donated to your organization, you should be able to pull up a file, every donation they've ever made, why they made it. And so I just think nonprofits are going to have to realize they're in business. They've got customers. Those customers are who they provide services to, who gives them money. And I urge you, think broadly, your employees are also your customers. They are volunteers. And so nonprofits are going to have to learn how to manage 100, 200, 500, and 1,000 volunteers at one time. And that's the advantage. And who's the largest user? 10 years ago, who was the largest user of volunteers in the United States? Microsoft. How many of you ever did a beta test? They sent you a CD that was crap. It had so many flaws in it, and you sat there and you found every bug in their software and you gave it to them. And you said, this is how to fix it. We estimated $3 billion a year. For 17 straight years, Microsoft got volunteers.
And they still didn't fix it.
Sort of, but you know what? After 17 years, Bill Gates was worth $51 billion. I don't think there was a lot of coincidence there.
I'm just a little grumpy because my Outlook at home, my Outlook Express stopped working yesterday. So.
Oh, Outlook depressed.
Yeah.
You know, in the last 2 years, we were fortunate to look at 2 new nonprofits from conception to evolution. You guys will hate me when I talk about the strategy. First of all, who you want money from is already donating money somewhere, which means it's exactly what we talked about here, is you're displacing a dissatisfied customer of a nonprofit. Then we found there was 3 steps to that urgency. Number 1, show your cause and get 2 emotions. One is wow, one is awe. Okay. You know, I feel bad talking about it in a so mechanical way because a lot of the non-profit amazing, but at the same time, if you cannot get the wow and the awe, it does not work. The second is, there is a difference between a donor and a participant. Participant means you're opening the door by saying, please come, sit with me, change the world together, versus, hey, would you take $50 out, please? When you're done, I want to talk to the next person. It goes back to the same concept. And the third part was, create an urgency. What we learned on create an urgency was many a time when you start sending out these mass emails, people realize this went to quite a few different people, which means if Arjun doesn't do anything, there's some other nice people right there, who will take care of it. So I don't feel the onus on me that if I, Arjun, do not act, this cause, which has gone through the wow and the awe and a participation invite, will survive. If you can make me feel urgent, if you don't participate, we won't be the same. You have got the best nonprofit ever. So these were some of the steps we learned.
The hypothetical business that I talked about a few minutes ago, travel business, there's 2 other elements that I didn't mention. And that is volunteerism, because people are viewing this retiring or soon to be retiring generation as a tremendous civic engagement resource that will be tapped and will be developed effectively. And number 2 is, the second part is global. Any nonprofit is no longer in a local business, they're in a global business. And so our hypothetical travel service will be taking people globally and they will be attracting people globally. So the nonprofit of the future and all business of the future need to think globally and need to think what resources can we draw on to support our cause. And people will fill that need with more time and resources available to them.
Let me add one more point to the question of nonprofits. If I could guarantee you no Ponzi scheme, real investment, that you would give me 99 cents and in 1 second I could legitimately show you all our investments, give you $1. How much of your money, if I were an investment firm and you were interested in investing, how much of your money would you give our investment firm? All of it, right? Guaranteed. Every second you put a 99 cents in, you get $1. In our economy, money follows value. Very simple. In the nonprofit world, money follows leadership. Completely different model. I have no idea how in the heck I'm going to solve the AIDS problem, how I'm going to end poverty in the Sahara Desert, but that's what I'm working on. And you don't really care that we fed 4 people today, or 400 people, if you know our real goal is to feed 4 million people. So I tell people, if you're talking about your business, and I ask people the question, why do you get on a train? Almost nobody gets on a train because of where it is. They'll drive to it. People get on a train because of where it's going, when it's going to get there, what it's going to cost, and is it comfortable, is it safe? So always tell people where you're going. And nonprofits almost always tell you what they've done. I was at a lunch today, 400 people. They spent 98% of the time telling us what they had done in the last year. I don't want to pay for what they did last year. I'm willing to write the check. But you tell me what you're going to do next year, I would have doubled my check.
I want to ask one more question before we turn it up to the audience for some Q&A. Let's go back to the leaky bucket. Now, when you talk about the leaky bucket, it reminded me how a couple of years ago, there was articles about companies who wanted some customers to leak out of the bucket. Case in point, I went to Best Buy before I got here tonight, bought a memory card for a computer I probably shouldn't be wasting any more money on, but I did anyway for a temporary fix for my Outlook depressed. A couple years ago, there were stories about how Best Buy didn't want me as a customer. I was a terminator. I went and I got the memory, left the store. They wanted people going in who were going to buy the big home theater system. They didn't want somebody going in there to buy a $10 CD. In this economy, does that make sense anymore?
The source of that concept is, if any one of you are in HR, we have 2 kinds of turnover. Good turnover and bad turnover. We are always happy that if certain employees leave because we don't want them. But again, if nothing else, when you look at the math today, you need to realize a few things. Number one, Brent can talk more about how the aging changes, which means today, the very fact I'm giving you $10 does not mean I'm going to give you $10 tomorrow. Maybe I'm giving you 100% of my disposable income right now, which means instead of looking at Arjun's model that was put up there, on dollar based, you need to look at totally different, because you're getting 100% of this man or woman's person. And second is look at the future potential of this person. And number 3 is look at the kind of positive word of mouth he can create. But if you forget all these things, I challenge you to ask yourself, are you that smart that you can have only a healthy turnover? Can you do that kind of a precision bombing that I don't want you? But don't you realize in the process of rejecting him, you'll have quite a lot of friendly fires around, which I don't think, forget down economy, I don't think you can ever get that arrogant, because I think sooner or later it's going to come and bite you where you don't want it to bite.
Thanks, Brent. Anything to add to that? Okay. Let's take some questions from the audience, and Dave Taylor has a microphone.
You may have heard about, they have the 2 employees who made the videos of the boogers and the butt wiping stuff, and Domino's was slow to respond, showing the power of social media in general. How would you have recommended that when you have disasters like that, you respond?
There was a pizza chain, does anybody remember, they guaranteed delivery in 30 minutes? Does anybody remember that? Or it's free? You know what a lot of my friends thought about that? Wow, my kids go to a good college. We were lawyers. We knew that was one of the stupidest things that ever in Washington, D.C. ever happened. Because you're going to have drivers driving like crazy. And then this was even before, but starting to get into video. And we then could go after the company that would do that. So it is the quick to respond, but you have to be prepared in advance. You have to know this could happen, that could happen, and you've got to have that, whether it's a PR firm or somebody internally. And the first thing, you have to marginalize the people saying, if this happens, if we ever see this happening, we're going to stop it. So you have to be incredibly vigilant. I can tell you, if anybody ever got to see how a lot of the food they ate is made in some places, they're not eating it. And you know what, if you were to see on a road how people are driving, you wouldn't want to drive it. So one of the great things about this country and how we produce food and how we do a lot of things is 99.999% of the time, people are just trying to do the right thing. And so you have to be prepared to push them forward, and it's just combat. This is hand-to-hand combat, and you have to go after the people, but you just have to be prepared, and you should be prepared.
The simple answer beyond what Herb said is that I have no idea how effectively they had planned for the contingency, but they should have. They should have had somebody able to stand in front of the media and immediately respond who had been well-trained in handling crisis situations. The worst thing in the world, particularly with our 24/7, 365-day instant communication world, is to keep the media waiting, because they will write the story for you. This is not a pleasant thing to step into. In fact, I handled McDonald's advertising in Colorado when there was shootings in San Diego, and I watched the process unfold, and they moved into it extremely quickly. What happened that you just described was so predictable that someday it might happen. With today's show-off YouTube kind of, let me make a big joke out there. So really, part of the media training is simply to be immediately ready with a crisis plan and somebody to step in front of the microphone. You do have to have a little time to gather the facts, but you can let the media know that we will have those facts by 6 p.m. tonight, and we will have a press conference. Hold your jets. We'll be right with you. So that's
when I was running marketing operations at Papa John's with 3,000 stores, however much you try to stay ahead of the curve, you can't. Somehow, somewhere, I learned it yesterday, I think in one of the presentations, was if man creates a system, man will beat it. So, compared to this, I would ask you to think about 2000, New Year's Eve. I just got a call that in one of my stores in Cleveland, one of my team members who was pregnant with twins was shot and killed in the store. Okay. You can't ever be prepared for this. Okay. So the PR part of it was always 3 steps. 1, build the relationship on a day-to-day basis, and don't try to build a relationship after a crisis happens. 2nd, trust the intelligence of your guests and your consumers. They know that happened in one Domino's. They know it's not Domino's, it's these goofballs who did that. So don't take it that seriously. Instead of seriously, take it assertively, which says Domino's does not tolerate any of these things. What Domino's overreacted in this particular case was they tried to show that we are going to take a warrant out for the arrest of these. Okay, come on. All of us watched because we thought it was funny. When a huge side of the population is not taking it seriously, I think it's a huge mistake of taking it seriously. Instead of Domino's should have just made an assertive statement and not made a big deal. But again, the thing I would go back is in any business, when the days are good, that's the time, build your relationship, build the goodwill, so when things go bad, people know, this is not my Domino's. It won't, you just want to build that situation where people say, in my Domino's, where that's my manager, that's my delivery driver, it happened.
But it's a good time for Papa John's to say better ingredients, better pizza.
Absolutely.
Another question?
One final question. Someone must have one. No?
I think we're done.
No questions? Then we are done. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.